So long back, I told a story of a devotee of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was leaving Mayapur, and it was raining. And this devotee, when he saw Srila Bhaktisiddhanta coming up the road, he paid obeisances, and it was a dirt road. And so he was muddy all over his dhoti, his forehead, and so forth. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta stopped the car and said, "It's raining, the road's muddy. Why did you pay obeisances?" And he said, "Guru Maharaj, these obeisances are my real wealth." I wanted to tell some stories about obeisances because I think a lot of times we minimize obeisances, or we see a Guru Maharaj and we just bow our head and we don't bow down, or we don't say obeisances, or we go in the temple and we say very short obeisances. So I've often wondered about this. Did Prabhupada's disciples pay full obeisances to him whenever they went to see him? So I asked Ruti Kirti, did you pay obeisances? Did Prabhupada require every time, if you're just coming in and out, doing some repetitive service? And he said, yes, I did, and Prabhupada required it. And if a devotee didn't do it, Prabhupada would point it out. And one time, a devotee didn't do it. He did it the first time. He came back a minute later. He did it the second time. He came back a minute later. And the third time, he just bowed down and got up. And then Prabhupada said, "What is this hatchet?" And he went like this with his arm. And he meant, hatchet means you go down, you come back up without saying obeisances. So even though it was his third time, probably within 5 minutes, maybe even 3 minutes, Prabhupada said he should pay obeisances. This was wrong, that he just put his head down. And there was another story that Shruti Kirti told in which Prabhupada was leaving the temple. Devotees would see him, they would pay obeisances. He would go for his walk, he would come back, they would see him, they would pay obeisances. And one time, a devotee who would normally pay obeisances didn't pay obeisances. He just put his head down, bowed like this. And Prabhupada turned to the devotees and he said, this is the beginning of his fall down. So what did Prabhupada mean? It seems to me what Prabhupada is saying is that he's minimizing his guru, and if you minimize your guru, it's the beginning of your fall down. Now, the devotee may not have been consciously minimizing, but Prabhupada saw it as a minimization if you don't pay obeisances. So this morning I was giving class, and we paid obeisances. We timed it. It takes 15 seconds, maybe even 12. So that's not a lot of time to offer to your spiritual master, but by doing it, it puts yourself in the position that you are dependent on him, or it reminds you of your position that you're dependent on him. That's what's so powerful about it. And it keeps us in that dependent position, and it helps us be dependent consciously. So this is very important. Whenever we enact an activity, give a class or undertake deity worship, we always pay obeisances. But whenever we speak in public, we should pay obeisances first to our spiritual master, from whom all our knowledge has come. This is very important. Whenever we wake up, we should pay obeisances. Before we chant Gayatri, we should pay obeisances. One devotee was chanting Gayatri, and then Prabhupada came to where he was, and he continued chanting, and Prabhupada said, "Why didn't he pay obeisances?" And later, Prabhupada saw him and said, "Why didn't you pay obeisances?" And the devotee said, "I was chanting Gayatri," and Prabhupada said, "You should always pay obeisances." And the devotee took this to mean, amongst other things, that before I chant Gayatri, I should always pay obeisances. So before we read, pay obeisances. This was something I learned very early on in Krishna consciousness, that whatever you do, you're doing it because of the grace and empowerment of the Guru, and appreciating him and honoring him before you engage in activity, you pay obeisances. When we went in the kitchen, we used to go down and pay obeisances, specifically because we didn't know how to cook. Still, it's a spiritual activity which is dependent on the mercy of Guru, so we should go in and pay obeisances. So I just wanted to share this with you. It's something that's been on my mind. Also, as a guru, sometimes I see disciples become a little familiar. And I just wanted to, as gurus, of course, we don't demand this personally, but we recognize that the obedience and submission and humbleness of the disciple is helpful. So although the guru is one's best friend, at the same time, the disciples shouldn't become too familiar. They should always pay their respects whenever they're greeting their guru and whenever they see their guru. Hare Krishna.